This is just a sample of the audiobook. To get the complete audiobook, access the link posted in the first comment.
Early colonial practices and institutions. Old World slavery, as known and practiced in the Mediterranean world, had already been adapted for the production of refined sugar from cane in some of the Portuguese colonies in Africa. It was no secret that gold could be made from sugar, by selling the refined crystal for a profit. Portuguese and Dutch merchants took the lead during the 16th century in importing African slaves to their West Indian and Brazilian plantations to plant and cut sugarcane. Merchants quickly discovered that they could add to their commercial profits by selling slaves in other American markets as well. Sugar production flourished in the Caribbean and Brazil, and, with the innovative legal authority of the modern state, turned the ancient custom of bondage into a modern labor institution that lasted until the late 19th century in the Americas. In the United States, racial slavery was finally abolished with the Civil War and the passage of the 13th Amendment to the Constitution in 1865. In Brazil and Cuba, it lasted until the 1880s. Its social and cultural legacy is with us still. Another compact way to process molasses for shipping, instead of refining it into sugar, was to distill it into rum. Rum could be turned into gold by merchants and enterprising distillers by using the labor of some slaves and, mostly, their indentured servants in colonial New England. Spices came from Dutch imperial plantation labor in the Far East and were turned into gold as well. Tobacco made by slave labor and indentured servants in Virginia soon followed. The enormous wealth made from American rum, sugar, and tobacco was greater than all of Spain's bullion, and by the 18th century made the trade in slave labor the most profitable enterprise of the era. Once the English entered it in earnest after 1714, the trade in slaves soon became twice as profitable as the sugar carried in the same space on the return trip. Profits became so great by 1750 that more than 100 English ships were regularly engaged in it, and many of them were now designed specifically for it. Bristol, Bath, and Liverpool were prosperous new English cities built on the wealth made from this trade. Several historians have postulated that the wealth produced by slavery and the slave trade provided the economic foundation for the Industrial Revolution, and that plantation slave labor was the precursor to the propertyless industrial working class, or proletariat. None of these things, gold, rum, tobacco, or slavery, was part of the feudal landscape. Neither was the tea or opium that came from the booming English East India trade of the era that followed, from 1660 to 1750. A new social structure with new hierarchies of power, new concepts of ownership and control, and new codes and laws of behavior was developed and imposed around these new forms of national and private wealth. The Dutch were the first to develop a national bank, a source of investment capital subsidized by the state itself, and a stock exchange. The English invented the poor laws of the 16th century, and later copied some of the Dutch ideas about business. The new English legal codes were designed to control the masses of impoverished peasants displaced from feudal estates after the conversion of the land system from subsistence agriculture to the more profitable sheep-raising and woolens industry. In Ireland, it was said that the sheep ate the people during the 1600s. Good agricultural land in Ireland was turned over to grazing while the people starved, fled, or were driven from the country. Following their military conquests, the English established plantations in Ireland as non-feudal agricultural enterprise zones and drove the population to the near barren and rocky cliffs of the western part of the country. Native Americans would soon experience the same displacement from their lands.